Yeah, we got one machine here. Actually, we do two of your properties for St. Rose. Usually, this is my main ice machine guy. I want to educate.
Is he from St. Rose?
Like, randomly, we'll
He's common spirit too? Or is Nephro?
I want to make sure everybody
Oh.
knows.
All good, all good. We're gonna talk about, there've been, probably since you started doing this, there have been some changes behind the scenes that you might not be privy to.
Yeah.
And it's not a dignity or common spirit. It's ASHRAE. You're all familiar with ASHRAE?
Yeah.
Okay. So ASHRAE 514 was actually published back in, the latest version was November 2023. Are you aware of ASHRAE 514? It actually states to use a biological filter, not only for the equipment, but in the PM process. So if you're cleaning any ice machine right now without using a biological filter, that may be grounds for an issue. So that's the reason why we're here, is to talk through the process that are required now to publish that. So I'm just gonna, this probably resonates with you here. You know, if you don't clean your equipment's gonna choose the time that it doesn't want to work for you. There's a lot of guidance today. CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that's the organization that actually pays the bills. So when you come into the hospital and your insurance pays part of it, well, CMS is helping to pay a large part, especially for people that don't have insurance. ASHRAE, we talked about the American Society for Healthcare Engineering. Originally published guidance, ASHRAE 188 back in 2016. There have been several iterations, several improvements since that. Guideline 12 and then ASHRAE 514. We look at atomizing devices, sinks, showers, because the exposure to healthy, but more importantly, unhealthy patients is not good. Then they talk about equipment. What equipment uses water in a healthcare facility? What's patient placing, or what are patients and staff using? And then how the equipment's cleaned. You see down that list, we've got Legionella. No? What is your experience with Legionella? Has the word come up? Are you familiar with the bacteria and how one actually catches pneumonia or contracts pneumonia? Okay. So what happens is there are these organisms that live in the water. And you may drink a glass of water that has this pathogen. However, it's not just drinking alone. If you were to cough, choke, or aspirate and get it into your lungs, that bacteria could be extremely harmful. For a patient inside the hospital here, it could kill them. So we don't want to give them another gift for visiting us in the hospital. If you chew on ice, which we'll talk a little bit about ice, another way to aspirate, or if you were to put your favorite carbonated beverage, your Coca-Cola, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, you've got that effervescence right in your breathing zone. So that's what we're here to talk about. What can we do? So ASHRAE 514, again, it is published guidance. This is not Nephro speaking. This is not Dignity or Common Spirit speaking. This is the national standard. And in Appendix G, they talk about healthcare facilities specifically. They've taken ice machines and drinking fountains so seriously, they've documented this over 24 times in this section. So they're very serious. So what happens if we're not using a biological filter? This would be construed as gross negligence. So gross negligence carries a lawsuit that is 10 to 100x more than a normal one would be. You're here to say, hey, you should be doing this. So there are all sorts of different types of filtration. What type of filtration do you typically see in the hospitals that you service today?
They're just a standard. Oh, what are they?
Sorry,
They come with a machine. Oh yeah, you're fine.
There's either scale inhibitor, taste inhibitor. Yep.
So they're Follett, Ojibwe,
Yep.
Scottsdale, Manitowoc,
Yeah.
3M, Kuno. All sound pretty familiar? And they're great filters for what they do, but knowing what they do and what they don't do, reading that fine print and understanding the implications of that fine print is super important. We never want this to happen anywhere, certainly not here, because this is a 24/7 operation. As soon as you have a situation when you're not using the water, you're gonna have problems. You're gonna make people who are really upset, and they're gonna transfer hospitals. That means a lot of money to this hospital. Have you ever been involved with a boil water advisory or water main break? When do you find out about them, before or after the fact? I think you know the answer. So being prepared ahead of time and being prepared with the proper filtration processes really making a huge difference. We work in dialysis, we work in military emergency response, so we know how to take care of folks that have challenges. Legionella is one of many waterborne pathogens that impacts patient safety. We already talked about how you contract that. We never want this here. Never want this headline. This headline is millions upon millions of dollars if it were to reach the news for an event.
You can have my sandwich, man, if you want it.
And believe me, everyone gets called to this.
Get it.
The hospital, their staff, any contractors, the products that are used. It's a very, very big deal, and this happens a lot. How are we doing so far?
Good.
Not putting anybody to sleep here?
No.
So, this is not a filter discussion. Yes, Nephros has filters that are used here, but this is far more than a filter discussion. So let's take a look at how it's plumbed. Clear tubing or clear housings. Why might that be an issue? Because Mother Nature and her light will actually amplify or grow bacteria in the system. So if you have clear translucent tubing, sometimes you see a tinted yellow or orange or brown, folks, stuff's growing in there. So that's a first indicator. If you can minimize or eliminate that, that would be fantastic. Does the filter have a provision to flush or prime the media? What does that mean? Well, when you put a new refrigerator filter on at home, what's the first thing you do?
Flush it.
Flush it. When you see that black debris, that organic material is great for taste, for odor, for scale, for lead, but it grows bacteria. So what you've done by putting a filter in without properly priming it, and the manifold has a lot to do with it, all that debris gets carried in the supply line and continues to feed that equipment over that 6-month period of time. Kind of see where we're going with this. It's more than just a filter process. Is the capacity of the filter aligned with the usage? How much water do you think that ice and water dispenser takes a day? If you were to guess.
380 pounds a day.
380 pounds, okay. That's a good guess. Let's make it easy. Let's say 200 pounds a day. That will take about 15 gallons for every 100 pounds of ice. Why is that important? You take that 30 gallons a day, you multiply that by that 6-month PM, 180 days, and you know what's the capacity of that filter. Really important to line that up. Hey, if it's 4,000 gallons, it means that you probably need to be changing that filter every 3 months or 4 months rather than every 6 months. Do you know the capabilities, the limitations, and the warning labels? That fine print, do you know what the filters do? Super important to have some further guidance on that. And then, are your filters biological, and are they an FDA-cleared medical device? That now is super important. We're not the only manufacturer, but we have the only product that's actually FDA cleared for 180 days. Unless you would have come back, maybe you guys want to come back to clean ice machines more often. No? Okay. And then where are you cleaning your ice machines? Are you cleaning it on site? Are you bringing it to a shop? Really important to understand where it's being done, how to mobilize, and how to get that process done, whether you're here or actually on the floor. When you look at a system like this, you say, wow, looks pretty stout, looks pretty hefty. But what have we learned already? We've got clear tubing before and after. We've got a clear housing in the pre-filter. We've got 2 commercial water filters. And, well, let's just say that clear tubing, clear housings, the secondary filter, the media in that as a amplifier. And then both of these filters actually have a warning label. I want this one to really sink in. Oh, before I get on to that, you're wearing gloves, I presume, if you have a drop-in filter. I can't tell you how many facilities I go to where they take out the packaging, they'll grab it with their hand and they drop it in. You took it into his hand, wipe your nose, went to the bathroom, open the door, you've just transferred whatever you had into that water system. That's just not great. Most filters have media for taste, odor, scale control. They have a capacity, as we talked about. A biological filter does not have a capacity. There are a lot of companies now that are claiming microbiological claims, but actually having a capacity. So what do I mean by that? We talked about the PM on this. We're dealing with living organisms when we're dealing with bacteria, virus, and endotoxin. We're dealing with something that can grow through membrane. If the capacity of your filter is 180 days, it may be too long for these commercial water filters. As we look at that fine print and we digest this, do not use with water that's microbiologically unsafe or of unknown quality without adequate disinfection before and after the system. And then it goes on. So I would ask you, if you had a loved one in this hospital and they were using the ice machine and they got sick, they got really sick, or they died, what sort of grounds for a conversation would be had? I guarantee you this would be the starting point. And it's on all the commercial water filters. That 3M, that Scotsman, that Everpure, it's in all of them. In a shiny chrome housing, really tough to find, but trust me, it's there. Would you like to see it? Thank you. South Carolina, warmer weather, well, that media will grow. It's great for taste, odor, and scale, and it's great for geometries, right? This is exactly what your smoothie wants to look like. These filters don't have a flushing provision, so what's going to happen? Well, that debris, that organic material is going to travel downstream into the tubing. You see that tubing was translucent at one point in time. Now it's got a bunch of biofilm in it. And when it builds up enough, that's immediately downstream of that filter head. Immediately, and carries, that's 3, 6, or 12 feet all the way to the equipment. So no matter how well you're cleaning the equipment, that's going to feed it instantly. So when you go back to do not use with water that's microbiologically unsafe or of unknown quality, without adequate disinfection before and after the system, this is what it's talking about. How do you address that supply line? We've got some tools to work with. How are we doing so far?
Still awake.
We're okay.
Okay, good.
I got questions, but we're.
No, please.
So then why if it builds so much bacteria, why use filters then?
Good question. Well,
Old age,
I'm sorry?
old age, they gonna change that, everything?
No, it has nothing to do with that. I mean, it can be changed or not. So generally, when you go to an ice machine or a water dispenser, what's your expectation? You want it to look good, you want it to smell good, and gosh darn it, you want it to taste good. That's why this media treats those three components. That's one aspect of it. What they don't know is the other side of it. Any other questions? You could save them, or you could.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, because regardless of it's building bacteria, but why use them? Because before we used to drink out of
Out of hose.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So then what's the difference now? Why now?
Great
Why
question.
use
Great question. So, you're number one. We've been recycling water on this earth for millions of years. Every raindrop that comes down goes through your building, goes through the soil, gets back through water treatment. We've been recycling it a long time. We're using more pharmaceuticals, we're using more chemicals, we're using more to treat that water. Same water. The water that's treated for this building is treated, let's say, 10 miles away. I like round numbers. It travels through the domestic water pipe and it enters the building. When it enters the building, it can have as many as 500 CFU, 500 colony forming units of HPC or heterotrophic bacteria, general bacteria. They haven't speciated it, they haven't said, hey, it's Legionella and Pseudomonas and E. coli. 500 CFU is the threshold for acceptable water. Once it enters your building, you own it. You own the quality of that water in your building. So a building like this that has old, let's say that's 50 years, and it's had different wings and different additions and renovations, and you've got piping dead legs, and we know what piping dead legs are. That's why we had this conversation. So what is a piping dead leg? If the diameter of the pipe is 1 inch, okay? That means that if I had a remodel in this room here, and this was going to an ice machine, and I cut this off, but I cut it back within 3 inches. A piping dead leg is 3 times the diameter of the pipe of surface. And what that does, it creates a stagnant area, a pocket, an eddy, and that's where bacteria is going to just say, hello, I'm here, let's party. So, and it's too hard to manage that in a facility like this. So you take the amount of water that's going through, you take all the renovations over the course of the last 30 years, it's tough to manage. This is a system, and this is in Northern California, and they couldn't understand. They were using the manufacturer's filters, they were using the manufacturer's PM process, and they were continuously getting hit. So, well, let's start with looking at the filter and how it's plumbed. Well,
They don't use Nephros right there.
they do now.
Oh, they,
They do now. So let's just take a look. Let's go from the top right arrow. So that arrow, it's not really showing up on this screen too well, but that's yellow. And we all know that there isn't any yellow tubing that we use unless it's in a bathroom or something like that, right? So you got yellow biofilm already coming into the filter. Just out of that filter, after that gauge and everything, you've got another yellow tube. So you have biofilm before and after the filter now. It comes down, there's a dead leg in the bottom. Remember, this is only 3/8 tubing. Doesn't take much with 3/8 tubing to create a dead leg. And then that serves 2 pieces of equipment, the juice maker, juice dispenser, and the ice machine. Do you think those lines had ever been descaled or decontaminated? And the answer is no. So what do we do to avoid that? Well, we can use the simple solutions. Now, with Hoshizaki allows for bleach. Do you guys use bleach as a disinfectant?
We have.
What do you typically use for disinfectant? IMS3?
Exact same stuff, right?
Sweet. And your descaler uses the exact same stuff as well? Fantastic.
So I got a question right here.
Let's do that.
That doesn't work on the Hoshizaki ice machines. We've been having many problems because of that chemical right there being used. And Hoshizaki recommends their use of their chemical, which is a little bit more aggressive than that.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yep.
Every manufacturer has their own brand. Hoshizaki and Scotsman are the only 2 that I'm aware of that actually allow for bleach, diluted
Yep.
bleach in that process. Because the food grade ice machine cleaner is a descaler, but that IMS3 is actually a quaternary sanitizer. Now you're like, it's a quaternary sanitizer. I can tell you what it is. It's food for some bacteria. So while you're attempting to clean that ice machine, you're actually giving it more nutrients. So it's really important to understand.
That's what's like readily available for us, like every parts house, you know what I mean? So-
Well, what we've been doing is a food and beverage process. What we've been doing has been food and beverage, not a healthcare process. We're not dealing with anybody else. but patient in this environment. So back in 2016, we had an emergency deployment in Muncie, Indiana. Had 110 machines to do in 3 days. Big deployment. We talked about the cleaning process. 3 steps, 3 hours, descaler, sanitizer, rinse. He had cleaned the ice machine before I got in there, was ready to roll. Great, let's talk about the cleaning process. Your descaling fluid, diluted with what? Warm water, hot water, cold water? What do you dilute your descaling fluid with?
Water.
Hot water. What's the temperature of that hot water? Must have been
150. 120.
120. Good. 120 is the highest temperature you can get in a building like this. Here's the challenge. Anything between 77 and 122 has the highest concentration of bacteria in your entire building unit. Anything between 77 and 122. So while you are diluting your descaling fluid, which is not a sanitizer, you're introducing the highest concentration of bacteria in this entire building. After using the sanitizer, which diluted with typically room temperature water, the manufacturers say rinse with fresh tap water, clean water. Now, after spending 3 to 4 hours cleaning that ice machine, using that sitting next to the ice machine, which is very convenient, what have you just done? What have we just done? Just we inoculated that. So we got through that process, and he was, I said we had a cause for pause, or a moment. I said, well, have you ever addressed the supply line between the filter and the ice machine? He said, no. Not the manufacturer's PM. True. But it was on the warning label of the filter you were using. Little angry. So we got a pink bucket to make him a little angrier. And we put the descaler fluid in there and we treat that supply line. Well, let me show you. 3 minutes after cleaning that supply line, which is only about 6 feet, his reservoir that he meticulously cleaned was now filled with biofilm and sludge. So here's what would have happened. He would have cleaned to manufacturer specs, he would have used my filter that I'm responsible for, and he would have popped positive. There are 22 steps in the normal PM that lead to retrograde contamination. 22, and the first one is the supply line for the equipment. That's what it looked like after. See a lot of Hoshizaki filters, right? Well, this was the treatment, the scaler, the sanitizer rinse. Again, doesn't show up really well, but in those first 3 cuts on the top, it was filled with debris, caked with debris that we actually treated. Because when we remove that line, you can see the biofilm. Hard water is prevalent here, and that calcium is a bed for bacteria to bond, to feed, and to amplify. So we were creating conditions to make it worse. If you're using the sink next to the ice machine, which is not good to begin with, and that has an aerator or laminar flow device, and it's filled with debris, and believe you me, a lot of them, I'd say 95% of them that I see, has debris in them. So you're using that fresh tap water to rinse that equipment, and that head is already contaminated, you're not going to get a better result. You may be lucky, but not good. How are we doing so far?
Still got questions, but after.
Shoot!
So say we did the whole cleaning the way it's supposed to be done, right? With your filters installed and everything. And we changed the faucet, we did everything, right? Brand new faucet and everything. And we still came out positive. What would be the end result? What would be your...
Yeah, 2 things. I would never use the faucet water. That's number 1.
No, I'm saying everything was done properly, everything was done, and we tested it and we were positive.
With your Nephro
Your
filter.
Nephro filter.
I would say there's probably a gap in the process, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm responsible. If you get a positive culture downstream of my filter, I'm responsible to do an investigation on that filter. Is that the filter that tested positive? Is that the machine that tested positive?
Well, we've had a couple of issues here.
So what I need is a call. Actually, our Granger reps, I think you're buying through Granger, not through me. and we have to do an RGA, Return Good Authorization Investigation. What we're gonna do is we're gonna test the integrity of that membrane. We're gonna do a biological test on that filter. And if the integrity is kept, that means the process downstream was not met. That happens a lot. That process is really, really important. But it gives you the confidence and your team the confidence of why you use it. It is published guidance, but this is just not a filter discussion. There's a lot of accountability involved here. And I think we're gonna find gaps and blind spots here that are gonna make sense.
I got a question.
Sure.
How aggressive is the Nephro filter? And the reason why I'm asking is because I notice the way our ice machines are acting now. The bearings are starting to make a lot of noise, like they're scaled up inside.
Nephro's is not a scale filter.
So right now we're not even using a descale filter.
You need a descale filter.
So those are the problems that we're having, because before the filters we had were descaled filters with the taste inhibitor. Now we're just tossed all those and going straight to Nephro.
There's merit for removing the living organisms from the water.
Yeah,
But in a hard water condition like that, you're gonna need a multi-barrier to approach it.
That's
And-
funny.
And we've got that as well.
yeah.
Here's the other thing. Do you know if the city here is treated with chlorine or chloramine? Chloramine?
I think so.
So chlorine, the difference between chlorine and chloramine is not only do you have chlorine as a base, but you've got nitrates, and ammonia.
I feel like that's everywhere though, that's not just, I feel like that's.
It's in a lot of cities. And it does a very good job of pathogens like Legionella. Two things you need to know. It actually grows two other organisms. That chemistry actually grows two organisms. The other thing you need to know is that chemistry without a block is going to eat the plastic in the gaskets of your ice machine. Fact. It attacks gaskets.
And that's what's happening now. That's why we get a lot of like stuff inside the ice machine, because it's eating the seals in that. Yeah.
Exactly. So you need a method. We have a chloramine and scaled filter. We have a filter that goes a pre-filter to address the chemistry, to address the minerals, and then use the biological filter. The sequence of those is absolutely critical. First time you're going to do the taste odor scale, then you're going to do the biological.
And have you introduced those to us here, or have you just introduced?
I think when you started buying through Granger, honestly, the conversations sort of changed. Because the conversations were being done through Granger.
You got any information on those filters?
Of course I did.
Yes. Before you leave, I need to get some of that.
Yeah, because I want to test your theory. I think.
Test. I'm in 1,500 hospitals around the country.
I think your filters are not as good as you say they are.
Okay.
I still think that they have the same things as all the other filters. But I kind of want to see what your theory is.
Sure.
If it's your theory or if it,
It's a little bit more theory.
yeah.
It is an FDA cleared class 2 medical device, which puts the accountability for claims on us.
Okay.
This is why we train here, to make sure that you know how to handle it. So let me paint another perspective here. The filters that you were using here before are a 0.5 micron filter. They're 500 nanometers. The Nephro's filter, 5 nanometers. It's removing bacteria, virus, and endotoxin, DNA fragment in that water. On the pre-filters that you might be using in some of those locations, the drop-in filters, it's 1,000 times smaller than that one. We use this in dialysis, and we use this for a military emergency response. We're deployed with U.S. Special Forces and operations globally with our membrane inside of a Camelback filter. So we take water more seriously than most.
About the taste and the smell.
But those are the filters we don't have.
That's the filter.
That's what I want information on.
Yes.
Okay. Because on the fifth floor, that's my floor. I always, only one. I got smell and taste.
Absolutely. And it will,
Yeah.
because you don't have a filter for that. You had a filter for
No,
that.
we got the Nephro somewhere.
That's not a taste, odor, and scale filter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's size exclusion. That's
It's not included on that filter, right?
well, I'm sorry, that does, basically, it deals with every living organism in that water, but it does not address taste, odor, and smell.
How effective is ultraviolet light machines?
What do you think?
I would say, I would guess it's pretty good.
I say it's questionable. And it's not because I have experience, because I have experience using it. Two things you need to know. The clarity of the water is absolutely imperative. Anytime you have debris in that system, you get shadowing. You're not going to get a full penetration of that UV. Time and exposure is absolutely paramount. The chances of you not having shadowing and having enough time in that tube, slim to none. And there's no guarantee that UV might be great for E. coli, which is massively bigger than the organisms we're talking about here. But it's not validated for Legionella, Pseudomonas, and NTM, which is why we're here. So again, it's not bad, but you need to know the process and the why. A lot of people are putting them inside the ice bins because it's on all the time. And it's killing what may be growing in there. But ice is going to cast shadows. Fragments of ice are going to cast shadows. So that effectiveness is challenged. And just because the light bulb is on, actually doesn't mean it's working. So that's one of the biggest challenges with UV. Just because the light will turn on doesn't mean that it's actually active.
Now, what about, another question is, what about after the Nephro filter as it's going into the ice machine, the water line that's from, the filter? Sometimes it just sits there, the ice machine's on, there's heat back there. So you're talking, there's like 80-degree heat in standing water. And then when the ice machine goes through a flush cycle, now you might have growth in that line. Now you're contaminating. So, I mean, the UV light, would that work good inside the machine? Like in the reservoir?
I think in
To help?
the ice bin there might be an application.
Okay.
But if we're using a 5 nanometer filter that's 3 times smaller than a virus,
Yeah.
we're removing by size exclusion, which means that if we have an issue at the ice machine, it's about the process.
Because I know now Hoshizaki, they have something where there is that UV light that's in the reservoir.
So the
In the ice
stocky
machine.
thing that I would look at, they bought a company called Frankie. And Frankie was an ozonator.
Okay.
The ozone after the Nephros filter, if you want to treat that line, is far more effective than a UV system. Far, far more effective. It's a continuous feed. So if you want to do it that way, I wouldn't spend the money for UV,
Yeah. So, yeah.
personally. I
Maybe,
worked in biosafety.
yeah, maybe you can give me that
I worked in
name
biosafety for
after.
over a decade. And we use UV in biosafety cabinets that have some really harmful organisms. Just because the light bulb's on, it doesn't mean it's working.
Yeah.
Stuff that we flushed out of the supply lines are just some examples there. Where you're cleaning your ice machines really matters, and if you're mobilizing, that's really great. But this is this Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas using one filter for all the ice machines they're cleaning. Tony Flores, Sutter, Sacramento. He's now retired, but Tony is demonstrating how to use the biological filter for diluting the descaling and sanitizing fluid. Super important. Tony had 80 ice machines at his location. Well, we removed that after 6 months. That debris that you see was the debris that was captured in the filter that never reached the equipment. Had he not had the filter in the area where he was PMing the equipment, that debris on the left-hand side would have been deposited and fed into all 80 ice machines he was cleaning. Water to rinse the bin. Again, never, and I can't emphasize enough, never use an unfiltered or a filtered source that's not a biological filter in final rinse. Defeating all the hard work that you've done with cleaning the ice machine. Oh, so this is the example here. The pre-filter if you have sediment issues here, and I know the Valley does.
Yep.
Secondary filter for taste, odor, chloramine control, and the third filter being the biological filter. Great way to set up. You can't miss doing this. Can't miss.
What's the life expectancy on those, the scale and the taste
We're
inhibitor?
gonna program that for 6-month PM.
6 months.
So you get the capacity of that filter for that equipment.
Yeah.
So 9,000 gallons will cover. This is some of the debris that we flushed out of the supply lines. Yes. That is your PM, and all those yellow hash marks, all those yellow highlights are the gaps, the blind spots, and areas for retrograde contamination in that PM today. Because they don't address the supply line, and everywhere they say use warm, fresh, hot, clean, or tap water. Now you know the why we're here. Not because you were doing anything wrong, you were just not brought up to a healthcare standard. You're in food and beverage. Temperature of the water really matters. If you had the ability to disinfect that machine twice, would you? I would. So what we do is we take the filtered water, we use the kettle, we elevate that to 170. 158 is the minimum for thermal disinfectant. 170 gives it a cushion. We'll add the descaling fluid after in that kettle, and we'll use the inline disinfection kit and we'll treat that line. Tell me about the ice machine cleaning process. Again, 3 steps, 3 hours. Ice production is the focus of that cleaning. Is the water source and water dispenser on that PM?
Nope.
No. So if you want to know why you're getting issues with repeat, it's because the process is flawed. Treating that supply line first has to happen. Using the biologically filtered water throughout the entire process has to happen. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. The thermal disinfection gives you a second disinfection process along with the descaling, and that's critical. I know you have questions. Mobilization, you can get one of these little Hansen pump sprayers at Home Depot and outfit it with your sanitizer. When you plug it in, activate the solenoid, beautiful. Actually pumps it right through there for you. Otherwise, we'll be using the syringe. When we put this filter after those commercial water filters, this is around the country. The first one, black. What happened? They put a carbon-based media ahead and they never flushed it. So that filter captured all that debris. Second one was Modesto, California. That third one in the line, that's a little scummy on top and a little sandy on the bottom, well, that's in your backyard here. That's in Vegas. And that bottom one, Chicago. So one thing we can do is we can show you what was trapped in that filter during that process. How are we doing so far?
Doing well.
Your 0.5 micron filter looks really small, but that is one building and 2 different locations. That's a variation in water quality between 2 different locations in the same building. One was on the top floor, east wing, one was the bottom floor, west wing. Get the picture. It's gonna change dramatically depending upon the piping, the chemistry, the age of the water. It's called STAR. Sediment, temperature, age of the water, and residual chemistry. Northern California Hospital, this is the variation in water quality between all their 200 ice machines. If I could open up the end of the filter, that's what the microtubules would look like. Pretty cool. Travels from inside, permeates through the cell wall. That's what each one of those microtubules look like under a microscope. What may seem counterintuitive is with the small pore size, think, wow, that's going to blind or occlude very quickly. What's counterintuitive is the pores on the inside, because they're so small, actually keeps debris suspended. And there's about 60 times more surface area in that filter than your normal filter. So, there's my contact information if you have any questions. But we'll go through getting this set up and go through this process. Every one of these steps that I shared with you is working with guys and ladies like you to find a better well. The kettle was not, heating it up was my idea. The kettle was not my idea. We were using a microwave and we melted so many cups, it was crazy. So using the filtered water, Dave Vaughn from Sutter, Modesto said, hey, I went camping. It took me about 5 minutes to heat up water. Let's try it. We've been using that ever since. About 8 years now, I'm using the kettle. So $15 at Walmart or Kmart, can't beat them. And you want to know, because we do this with coils. Now this is a brand new one, but I guarantee if you use this process properly, in 6 months, and 8 months, and a year, that coil will look almost brand new, because we're heating up the water and we're going to use the descaling in here. Another way of validating the process actually works. All right, let me start to get this thing plumbed and we can work from there.
Okay.